And we're live. So welcome to another edition of the Future of PLM webcast. Today we're doing sort of a part two of one we did, was it 6-8 weeks ago, about M-BOM, that was lively to say the least. And in fact, we never actually got to the end of it. So we decided to do it all again. I don't have exactly the same host of, group of characters and peanuts and wise guys and wise women on this call. In fact, I have two new people. So I'm welcoming Christine Longwell and Gus Quade on this call. Why don't you two introduce yourselves first, and I'll throw out the first question and we'll get started. So Christine, do you want to start?
Sure. Christine Longwell. I am a mechanical engineer. Been following the industry since 1998 when I got started with SolidWorks and became a blogger and worked in the industry, worked in the automotive industry, worked for Ford, worked for Chrysler as powertrain engineer. And I've started up some electric bus companies, which was super fun. But I've been studying the industry as a competitive intelligence analyst. I've been behind the scenes up until the point that I was the director of research at SimData. And now, out here having some fun.
And, my turn. Hi, I'm Gus Quade. I'm a solutions engineer at Autodesk. I cover anything inside of data and process management for our manufacturing customers here, which PLM is probably the biggest one I get to touch on. My background's as a mechanical engineer. I worked in biotech and robotics, designed ice machines for a little bit. That was cool. Haha. But I used a whole bunch of different design and data and process management tools, experienced companies that were pretty buttoned up and others that were maybe a little messy. And now at Autodesk, I get to meet with companies like the ones I used to work for, and about 200 a year. And I get to hear what's good and bad and where they want to get to. And I help map that to our solutions. And by way of PLM a lot. And bombs come up a lot too. M-BOMs come up a lot too. So I'm excited for this conversation.
I suppose that soon you'll have a little bit more on S-BOMs, thanks to the awesome acquisition you did of MaintainX. Congratulations. That is an absolutely fabulous company. And you're lucky.
I don't know what I'm allowed to officially say yet about that, besides just like, good move. I'm excited about that one. Yeah, MaintainX.
You paid a premium price for it. We can say that, because it definitely wasn't worth 3.6, but
they're number one. Worth a lot. They're number one, and I guess the price tag shows.
No, it was exciting because I had the privilege of meeting them and interviewing them at Prove It in February, and I was fairly blown away by what they were doing already. So congratulations. I just wanted to get that out there. So today we're going to talk about the M-BOM. Already there's been controversy on the on the chat for this call, because our mutual friend, because a lot of us know Mr. Jörg Fischer, this guy, and he's already throwing in the no, he's always like this with all his photos, like this. And he threw out there that this is old school. M-BOM doesn't exist. What you usually refer to as MCAD-BOM. And the relevant only BOM, of course, this is a SAP guy talking. The only one that exists is the MRP BOM, which is BOM segments that have to be supplied to the correct locations in the ERP system. That's the correct structure. No discussion needed. Anybody want to react to that? I think that's
comment. I mean, that post got 50 comments. The post that said we do not need to discuss this got 50 comments. I got 1,700 interactions.
Wow, that's a lot. So who wants to debate virtually Mr. Fischer? Because I invited him. I invited him on the podcast. He did not answer, but we did invite him here. So it's
he
not
said he was
blocking
teaching.
him out.
He was teaching today.
He was teaching right now. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to put students in front of everybody else, right?
Yes. All right. Well, we'll bring him on for part 3 if any of us survive after. Rob's supposed to be here, the one that took the picture of all us fighting and hit us. So anyhow, I don't know. You want to start, Christine? Do you think
I totally agree with him, so I could just drop off right now. No,
I'm gonna raise my hand and take the stab at it being the ISA 95. So I want to preface my answer by the fact that I don't really run into the concept of an M-BOM very often. It's something that appears to be very discrete manufacturing oriented. So if I'm in batch or any kind of a continuous process, if I'm using or doing something that's similar to an M-BOM, we're going to call it like there's a recipe that's associated with it, or a specification, or an SOC. There's a lot of different ways that it gets answered, but the short version of this is yes, the ERP has a certain amount of information, but where all the detailed design occurs out on the plant floor and what's actually going to happen, that's going to be in something that exists like the M-BOM. So, my position is if you think of all of this is going to exist in SAP, I got a whole load of MES software to sell you that disagree. So
Yes,
there's my
you,
parting shot. Go ahead, Christine.
the
I'm sorry.
important thing that you said is what is going to happen.
Mhm.
What is going to happen is an action. It
Sure.
doesn't deal with the materials. So what manufacturing cares about is how we put this whole thing together. What engineering cares about is what the thing is, what the recipe is, what the product looks like. And in between those two things, of course, you can't have this conversation without going through the supply chain. You can't create the action to make the thing unless you have the stuff to make the thing.
Yeah. And so when I say just, the action of that, it's, S95 or ISA 95 has this, what's called the definition land, or, in the definition, this is the what? It includes the materials. It includes the equipment. It's the role-based of equipment where I'm going to do that. They often get conflated, or what the CMMS would call the asset itself. But ISA 95 has something called a physical asset. It's more like the tooling. So if I'm making pizza dough and every time my stamp cycles, I make 4 balls of dough or 5 balls of dough, that's the physical asset that's done on the equipment. And then finally, there's personnel. So yes, all of the materials are there. Even though there's an inventory component to S95, we're really looking at when does the material hit the shop floor, or what does that look like once I get into the action. But absolutely, that entire bill of process, M-BOM, all of the work instructions, all of that is contained. And I've just never seen that level of granularity that's required in an ERP. And frankly, I don't think it should. So I'm going to disagree that the M-BOM needs to exist. But that's my take.
Wait,
right.
You're saying that the M-BOM does not need to exist, or you're saying that
No.
He says
The
it doesn't.
M-BOM absolutely needs to exist.
But not just in ERP. It cannot be only owned by ERP.
Correct.
Outside
Yes.
of ERP.
ERP is going to provide a lot of the guidance, but this is when I go to actually the definition of what things get made. I just don't think the ERP should contain it. It's more of your enterprise resource planning. Christina, gets back to your supply chain comment of where am I getting this material? What are the specifications for it? When I receive the material, what are the quality tests? Anything that is of that nature, yes, that is part of that supply chain. But once I am now, I still have to define how it's going to actually flow through that the material process. What are the quality checks that are internal to the manufacturing process that has to go along with it? So, yes.
Another side debate that we had, and Brian, you come from this background of fashion. It's also sort of industry specific, right? I mean, David, you just said that in the process continuous world, it's a different thing. You're dealing with recipes, formulations, specifications. In the fashion world, we may or may not be manufacturing. We might just be sending a spec, and some third world country is actually making whatever it is.
Michael, I think, I'm listening to this stuff, and it does differ based on industry, right? If we can't agree it differs based on industry, we might as well unplug the electronic devices and go home. So
you'd risk having your head cut off by the fan again. So we don't want to do that.
There are similarities, though. They are all different, like the recipe versus M-BOM in the process versus discrete manufacturing. That one's a really easy line to draw. And if you can't agree on that one, let's unplug everything. Fashion and let's say like a consumer product, like, an electric toothbrush.
Like the fan above my head.
Oh, or the fan above your head. There you go. Watch out.
Exactly.
They both might actually have pretty similar like ways of managing the definition of the product, where they just kind of draw something up and throw it over to something overseas.
But let me just add one thing.
They manage that, Bob.
Let me just add one thing, then you guys can carry on down the road, is that when you get into fashion and you get into retail, as in the garments we're wearing and the ones that Pat just swapped, right? Is that
for those not aware, I just took off a t-shirt.
I know. You went to Studio X and you did whatever you got to do. So the thing is that the fabric is key as an ingredient to the design. So you would never have a designer plus developer of a garment ignore what the material was right down to the feel and touch, which means it is like a recipe, except the fact is that, you're not giving freedom to the factory to do anything they want. You're saying, this is the material, This is the supplier. This is the color.
It's
Don't
a button
screw it
or
up.
a zipper. It's this season, this size, with this
Now, they may
collar
say-
or not.
Now, Fino,
Okay,
to your
this little
point, they may
plastic part
say,
here, though, I'm going to give
I don't
that
care
same
what zipper.
definition to my contract manufacturer, though. I'm going to say, like, using this material, I'm sourcing, you know, my raw pellets from that person
yeah.
over there. I want to have this sort of like glossy finish on it. I chose from a catalog of like 100 different little glossy finishes. So I'll actually say, like, there's probably more similarities too.
Well, the thing is, you can say it's factory sourced if you have trust in the factory. And
True.
it could be like
Yeah.
a zipper, as Fino was saying. You know, I can always tell a product by its zipper. If the zipper goes, I know the product sucks. So the fact is that each industry may have freedoms and non-involvement by suppliers in the definition in the E-BOM. Because if I'm looking at somebody doing apparel, those sources are right in. If I'm looking at somebody doing footwear, that factory is right in the PLM system. They're right in there forming the whatever around the last, and they're determining yield in the E-BOM. And then it comes through as a spec, as Fino said, it comes through as a spec that is the tech pack that could be off to other factories, right? So there are so many different methodologies that are used, whether it's a recipe that delivers batches and then gets logged so that you can recall a batch if something screws up, or it's things like the product above my head that's spinning that has only variances on the blades and maybe the housing color, and that's it. But that means a different blade because it's painted differently for the black one versus the brown one versus the silver one, right? So M-BOM has to exist, and it is different than the E-BOM because the E-BOM may be only one for that fan, and the M-BOM is 5 different fans. It could be that way. Okay, so I'll back off and get back into the balcony where I generally belong. But
Brian, what if someone will come? What if someone will come and say, no, I want to have 5 configurations of this fan, and I want it in the engineering part.
Well, then you have it in engineering.
I'm not saying it. Oh, here you go. Thank you.
I believe you.
I rest my case.
You and I have had this discussion since 1804, right? I think
Brian.
I think the PLM system should have the E-BOM, the M-BOM, the as manufactured, the as serviced, the as shipped. All of them should be in one system.
I don't know. I'm just asking
based
question
on different
about
views.
Okay.
Overloading the lake.
Yeah. Brian, can I ask you, having worked in fashion,
yeah,
I didn't find that a lot of the suppliers were actually in PLM, but everything that got conveyed was conveyed inside the tech pack. The tech pack was really the thing that by which you would contract against, and somebody would then send the things back. What's in the tech pack is a bill of materials, but it's also a material specification. But who owns the tech pack? Sourcing.
The thing is, the product that my group built, Flex PLM, suppliers were right in there. I mean, right in there.
Sure.
When it came to lab dips, when it came to fabric, shipments of samples, they were right in there. They were going bing, 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 bing. So by the time that tech pack went out, it wasn't sourcing figures it out. Sourcing was in the system sorting it out. So different products have different limitations. Ours didn't. We had factories in, we had material suppliers in, we had, the tech pack was done after developers and designers sometimes validated that that supplier was going to actually do the right color on the right fabric based on its construct and blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into that detail, but I'm just saying PLM should, I use that word should, include everyone. Otherwise you bifurcate, meaning rip apart the E-BOM from the M-BOM. And it could be multiple M-BOMs if you're manufacturing in multiple factories. Holy crap. You're like chasing the rabbit in the yard. If you make a change in E-BOM, you got to go, oh, yeah, right. I got to update all these people. Well, I hope they got it. If they didn't, you don't know what you're shipping until it gets returned because it's crap. So,
but to that point, I wanted to ask Oleg, there's actually a question in the chat from Kirshat Oksu. I hope I didn't pronounce your name wrong. In the future PLM, if the future of PLM relies on an absolute digital twin continuity, or as Oleg, you like to say, product memory, right? Why are we still treating the M-BOM as a separate downstream static package rather than a real-time algorithmic mutation of the E-BOM driven directly by production floor kinematics and tooling constraints? Not a bad question.
Here. 10-4
Yeah,
niner.
same here. I like
Yeah.
it.
Oleg, you want to pick that one?
I don't.
Ah,
I think what I wanted to mention again. Maybe we can take this question later. I think what I was listening now, and also I think it was very good comment from Jos this morning. Speak about two different dimensions, and I will come to product memory ideas, but the two different dimensions. One of them is people and organization, and the second are systems. So in every place where I've seen the, I would not call it fight, Fina, but I appreciate the kind of marketing works. So you need to call it fight. But in every place I've seen it, those discussions, and I've seen in many implementations, it all comes around how people want to work, and then what systems they have in place. So, and that's very connecting to Christine, what you said about, you put it in a startup in one way, and you put it some companies in a different way. And I think, Brian, it goes to the point of, if a tech pack or if it sits inside of your Flex PLM system or some other systems. And it's also related, I think, to the questions about MES and some others that were asked. I think those are great questions. To me, what I've seen in many implementations, people coming and saying, I have engineers want this, I have my procurement wants something else, and I have someone else in maintenance wants something third. And those are kind of introducing the organization and responsibilities, and people really wants to own it. So this is where it first comes on the point, like why I want to own, and then systems. And this is where Mr. Fischer ideas, and I had this conversation with him a year ago already, who owns what? I mean, if SAP needs to own everything, I'm fine. I mean, this is okay. Like, put everything in SAP if it works with the organizations. So those are two dimensions. And your argument about Conway law that everything is following the organizational structure. It's absolutely right. If organization will have engineering and manufacturing wanted, don't move my cheese, I want this M-BOM to structure like this, and engineering saying, don't touch it because I made this structure in, for the sake of this conversation in SolidWorks. And that's how they want to do it. This is fine. These two dimensions, always, I've seen them in all conversations. And how to call them? Call it orange, black, and blue. When we're getting our examples of different bombs, we're saying call it yellow bomb, blue bomb, red bomb, just to make everyone live in peace. I mean, that's just my perspective, maybe simplified. Now, the questions that are coming around product memory, and I certainly take a blame and saying that everyone understands word memory differently. So I need to probably put a little bit more explanations, but this is a context that can connect between them. So we need to connect, because something that exists in engineering and how reasoning engineering and why they put their things needs to relate it to somehow to logic that exists in manufacturing. And this is where Dr. Fischer came completely right. He said without details of manufacturing and logistics, you cannot do it, but you need to respond and correlate it to engineering. And then I've seen many questions, many comments to this morning in LinkedIn. People say, like, how you connect those transactions together and how you keep them together. So it just, what product memory, just don't argue the term, but there's something that connects all these pieces together, and the logic together should exist.
So
Otherwise,
let me I want to add
fighting.
to what you just said. Okay, so product memory, in my mind, should not exclude anything about the product. What that means is the E-BOM, as formed, are transactions. When ready, go to product memory. M-BOM, in my mind, should just be a different view of the same bill of material. So you don't say, I didn't know what engineer had, because it's in the friggin' engineering BOM. So if you can set up the view for the M-BOM, then you're adding additional components or adding sourcing content or adding
You see,
some type of
you see,
operation.
Pat already want to disagree with you. I just see.
Yeah,
You're making,
I don't agree either. David, nobody
I
agrees
tell
with
you
that
now.
all of our boxes turn blue because we're all talking.
Yeah.
I would go with what Brian just said. If we get rid of the E-BOM, we need
Why?
to adopt design for manufacturing, and we
Yeah.
need the engineers to design their product such that the manufacturing system can build it.
I agree.
Okay, there we
So,
go.
but that still doesn't mean that's not the E-BOM. It just happens to be the E/M-BOM, right? I mean, why we're building walls that have a letter, and as Oleg said, it could be the blue and the yellow and the red. I don't give a shit, right? But the fact is that it should be that everyone that can use the utility. Now, it depends on the system.
Yes.
Some systems don't allow you to do variances, like Oleg's system. Open-BOM allows you to put up different views, wrapping it around like it's a 360.
Ooh, is it
of
is
the
a different
BOM.
BOM a different view, or is it its own thing? I had this debate
Yeah,
for
It's
like
its own
5
thing, but
hours
turn it
once.
on a different
It's its
way.
own thing. Yeah. Well, or is it a
It is
view?
its own thing, but that means you turn down the view for M-BOM. Why?
The-
Why? I'm
the
totally
customer,
lost in what
hey,
people
what
say.
the customer
I
wants
want my
certain
cheese over
capabilities
here
in their
this
product.
package.
The customer wants certain capabilities in their product, and the manufacturing system has a different set of capabilities.
I know.
And somehow we need to align those things.
Yes.
Do,
And it
do,
can
let
be-
me,
And those people
Yeah.
don't talk to each other.
I'm gonna
Right.
The
talk-
engineers
I'm
are
gonna
sitting
talk
in their
about Oleg's
office.
BOM.
Or
The
else
other
they
guys are
all
on their
talk at
shop floor.
once.
Yeah.
But I'm going to talk about Oleg's BOM, Open BOM. I'm just going to give him a plug. Why not? He's sitting right there. His system, as it is defined, allows you to turn on different views. It's what I call overloading the link, saying the relationship between this parent and this child exists only for manufacturing visibility. Why? Because I want it. I don't give a crap. Engineering said no.
So let
Screw
me,
that.
I'm sorry, let
I'm
me
gonna use-
expand on this a little bit because I think we're moving into a new. So first, our manufacturing methods were largely, they were originally developed kind of for the Model T, and then they really took off during the World War II arsenal of democracy, and we're still doing stuff that's about 75 years old. But customers and society, and I'm going to that level, are beginning to demand new things, and we kind of talked about this in the 737 Max and the idea of a digital thread, where customers and society are presuming that the OEM will maintain responsibility much deeper into the life cycle.
Yeah.
Now, in the case of apparel, who cares, right? Once it's out the factory door, we don't, even the customer doesn't care about.
Well, you
Even
got a 65%
as a
return
customer,
rate.
I'm not that concerned
only
with
a
the
SKU.
OEM maintaining my shirt, right? But in my aircraft carrier, or my airplane, or my car, or more than likely, when you start getting down to home appliances, the microwave, I might just throw it away, but the washer and dryer, I want it repaired, right? There's a spectrum here, and there's something in the middle of that. But as we moved toward this world, and if you start looking at circular economies, so even in apparel at that point with circular economies, the OEM needs to pay attention throughout the entirety of its life cycle, all the way into disassembly and disposal. So at this point, we need the World War II methodology where we really didn't care what happened to the airplane after it left the factory. That's no longer viable, and we're going to need something new for this.
I agree.
I'll move into this
Yes.
and say, and a big piece of that is the service BOM. There's a disposal BOM that we got to disposal something or other that we got to talk about, but a big piece of this is the service BOM.
Yeah,
Okay,
and we need to have a feedback loop from the service to the engineering, right?
yeah, right.
But that
Right.
becomes, so Pat, I'm just going to say that becomes the as maintained. And one of the things that, remember we talked about the aircraft, I don't remember the exact name and the number, how many people died. But the fact is, if the as maintained changes something in order for it to continue to work, that should ripple back, that should go back, that should fly back to the engineering BOM to change every future. And it should also tickle all the other serial numbered planes to say infield replacement, bam, 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 right? So there are some things in the as maintained that should come back in because they just save people's lives, right?
Yeah. And there are examples of that, and I use this one in my class, the TWA 800, the fuel tank exploded 20 minutes out of, this is in the
Not a good
1990s.
thing. Not a good thing.
Right. And they were able to to pull it out of the sea. And because they were able to pull it out of the sea at a great deal of expense and work and some risk, they realized that this problem, I think it was the MD-80s, they realized that this problem could exist in other aircraft. And they did at that point, the FAA did at that point go back and say, you've got to fix all these wiring harnesses in these planes because of this problem that we happened on the first one. And a little after that, when I was working at Boeing, I learned that the FAA then began to require what we would now call a digital twin on all aircraft manufacturers. So in the process of manufacturing, the example that was given to me is if a forklift runs into the aircraft while it's being assembled and you have to take a skin off and put a new skin on, you've got to record that information. So
that's not a planned event either.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, you got to cover all these emergent events. So, and anyway, I'll kind of wrap up by saying I think we're into this. I think we're moving. Well, let's see. First, there's a difference between durable and non-durable goods. So, apparel is a non-durable good. We probably don't care. The OEM doesn't care
unless
about
you look at
servicing a
circular
non-durable good.
economy.
But the circular economy does, right? Yeah, exactly. In particular, when you're looking at fast fashion and that sort of stuff, right? You got to start thinking about the disposal phase. Durable goods, you need to start thinking about the service phase. And the first step of the service phase is the manufacturing phase, right? So there's this continuity that needs to continue.
So that's where that M-BOM, let's call it an M-BOM, meaning what was done in manufacturing has to live on as a static state, serialized. And I have a VIN on my car, right? Vehicle identification number. That says that my, whatever the hell it is, Toyota something, has to be maintained individual to any other similar car that's out there, right? And that's that durable good you're talking about. So that's where the M-BOM becomes the as serviced BOM. And the longevity of all of these should be, and I'll go back to Oleg's system, right? It should be where it just tentacles out. And that gets into the product memory. And that gets into what's been serviced in the world, product memory. If you apply AI to it, it goes, things are still going good. Things just, oh, shit. Sorry about that. Oh, crap. Something happened. I need to do something, right? And the product memory is the saving grace of all of that because it looks at, go ahead.
And silos exist. Historically, people think that silos exist because everybody's using a different system. But guess what? People are using a different system because organizational silos exist. Because different organizations have different needs. And people like to gatekeep their information in these manufacturing companies. Not sure if you've noticed this.
Right.
But what's going to happen, or what's happening with AI that I'm seeing, is this orchestration layer that PTC and Siemens have both rolled out this year. Aris is doing it. Aris has capabilities. So what AI is going to do is it's going to chip away at these silos at a higher level and enable visibility into places that visibility has never been seen before in really interesting ways.
Well, that's actually that I did a presentation on that just like 2 months ago, talking about PLM and MES orchestration, because like rarely the people in PLM get to go into the MES. Like if you look at like really upstream engineering, but there's valuable data there, and vice versa. Like people who their primary system of engagement is MES, they don't get to go upstream into like the design tools necessarily, but they have something to learn from each other.
Yes,
and the data is being built out. Additional information is being added along the way. And yes, visibility is great, but my definition of focus working in a startup manufacturing company was deciding what I don't care about.
So that's the thing.
Tell me what to make and I'll make it. Tell me what to buy and I'll buy it.
Right. So Christina, I just started a company, Vivid Nexus, right? Which means clarity in connection. If you look at Vivid Nexus together, right? And that is totally focused on the drawing in to product memory from a wide range of silos, because to your point, organizations use systems that complete their role, and they don't really give a crap one way or another about how the data got in, but it's going to be good for them. They're going to do what they got to do, and then they're going to ship it off to wherever that next silo is, right? And product memory has to be the orchestration, as you said, of all of these. Product memory has to be drawing in from all of these silos and normalizing that data so AI could look across all organizations. That's where the world's going to go. But we can't say that product memory is only for this silo. And PTC came out with Jetstream. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to. So I was going to jump off of what Christine was saying. Is that we've looked at how do we do end-to-end supply chain from McDonald's in Australia that had the My Mac as app, and I could actually scan the QR code of my Big Mac, and it could tell me exactly where the bakery that made the bun, the farm that produced the beef, for everything that was there. But the same thing applies for even my service. And I think when I was first introduced or brought into this call, it was always the challenge of going from E-BOM to M-BOM. And now we want to add in this S-BOM. And this is really where I start to talk about, well, there just needs to be a standard way to do that. And well, guess what? There is a standard that allows us to do it. We just always think of it as only purely manufacturing, but there's any maintenance operation.
I'm sorry. First things first. What is your definition of S and S-BOM?
So that's the service BOM. That is that piece where I've now done some work on it on a product after the fact, but that needs to come back. So one of these.
Do we all agree on this?
Yeah.
Ooh. So wait, I would say like that's an as maintained BOM, right?
Whoops.
Like some people would call that as
Trying to
maintained.
reconnect.
Apologies.
Yeah.
It's.
I was going to say for some folks, the service BOM is like, oh, this is the
Something
compilation of all the service kits and services, and more like a small cut of the BOM plus the IKEA Allen wrench is like on my S-BOM.
Okay. Oh, perfect. Thanks for that clarification.
The software BOM?
Oh, or simulation, or
The S-BOM.
software.
It's italicized, right?
Too many S's.
SW-BOM. I wouldn't.
Thanks for the clarification. So for me, it's just really anything that happens, regardless of whether it's the service BOM, or here's your spare parts material, or here's the software you need to run it, or regardless, it comes back to what Christine was getting at, is we still see silos not because software exists in silos, it's because companies exist in silos and need a common way of exchanging that data. And I think going back to the premise of this is really hard, and now we're trying to add more integrations. And I think we're at this point where we think AI is going to do all this magic stuff, but the reality is because I just used the term S-BOM and I used it differently, and now all of a sudden we want to apply AI to something. We've got to standardize on the data that's coming back. Go ahead, Brian.
David, what I'm saying is that normalization of all silos data has to precede the application of AI. So let's say, to your 100%. Point, by the way, I was driving on the thruway in New York. I was driving on the thruway in New York. I stopped at a McDonald's, and I have the best Big Mac I've ever had in my life. So I went back to the counter. I said, "Who made this Big Mac?" And the guy goes, "I did." I said, "You did the best." So I relayed it to the manufacturer of the Big Mac. Unbelievable. Never had it like that. All the patties are usually screwed up, and you got to reorganize.
So you just need to go where they make the patty sometime, because that is the best Big Mac you'll ever have.
Yeah,
man, I love going to that place. Anyway, go on.
But the thing is, you have to normalize all of the silo data. You have to. If you don't normalize it, and this Vivid Nexus now has a patent map, tag, and transcribe, because it has to map, tag as it goes into product memory, and then transcribe as it comes back out. If you don't do that, nobody knows what the hell you're talking about, and AI is useless, right? But to your point, every silo should inject its data and normalize it as it comes in. And if you apply AI to that, you've got product, you've got business, you've got organizational AI, and that's where you get value and gain, right?
Going back to Jas's comment and today about Conway's law. So the idea is that a product will follow the organizational structure, right? The structure of the product matches the structure of the organization. Can you get to what you're talking about with some value in AI without first breaking down Conway's law?
Are you kind of saying, like, if I have a really flat organizational structure, like I have one, everyone operates in one group, that my product structure is also going to be like very simplistic, and it's like there's just one BOM. Whereas if I have many silos, then I have many different records to represent that one product.
Right. And think of the words that we use to define a think of the words we use to define a life cycle, right? We have tiers, we have departments, we have divisions. All these words are divisiveness, right? We encourage divisiveness in our product life cycle.
Are you a
So
matrixed organization or not? Like,
what's that?
are you matrixed? Is
Right.
all of marketing in one group,
No,
or do you
but
organize yourselves
actually,
by
my
your
point
mission?
is the
Right?
organization's not big enough. But if you're thinking about the life cycle, you can't limit your thinking to the OEM. You've got to think about everything from the supplier out to the user. So when we talked about the 737 MAX, there were failures at, there didn't seem to be, no, there was one failure. Let's see. There were failures at Boeing. There were failures at one service supplier. There was a failure at a second service supplier. There was a failure in pilot training. So to keep those planes flying, you need a digital thread, in my view, across supply, 1,000 suppliers, one OEM, dozens of airlines, thousands of pilots, hundreds of service organizations.
Yeah, that's all got to be
That's the
connected.
instantiation of Conway's law.
That all has to be connected.
So how, my point is, I don't think there's any sort of database, artificial intelligence or not, that can overcome those dysfunctions.
Well, Pat, I would say that if you started out knowing the dimensionality as you just went through, and my head was about to go poof, right? Because you got pilots, you got this hour, you got that guy's drunk, and you got all these things, right? that affect the operational stability of an airplane, right? Then you got all the humans that are on it or aren't on it because they just went into the sea, right? That whole thing, to keep that digitally managed, it ain't going to happen. The reason is there isn't a godlike organization that says never let go, right? Because everybody lets go. Okay, my job's done. So to keep it going, you need something above all of that in order to say, the above thing, have responsibility for all of that. And until you get that godlike figure, you're not going to get what, in the case of airline use, or even trains, trains are going at 70 miles an hour down a track with a sleeping conductor that's got, he laid down on the, what is that? When your foot falls off, it shuts off the engine. He just fell asleep on it. And you're fucking going. So the thing is, all these things don't have godlike representatives. They don't. And so we're always going to have times where there's a distance between what you should know and what's really going on and how it's going to affect everything. And if we try to plug it, it may be plugged for some, like a shirt. That was easy. But for an airplane, I'm letting go. I'm going back into the balcony where I feel safe.
Let's bring this back to E-BOM, M-BOM. Are we aligning on the BOM, which is closest to our own work, and therefore are we aligning on the BOM, which is in our own silo? And can we ever break down silos?
I was gonna add, I was pondering this question yesterday, getting ready to come on here, kind of like the E-BOM versus M-BOM. Oleg's seen a funny picture I made that had Dr. Jörg and Gus on it regarding E-BOM and M-BOM. But prior to like all these different disciplines where we didn't have electrical, electronics, and software and all these things, it was just like purely mechanical. Like did we make a BOM even that was an E-BOM? Was it just an M-BOM? Did we just make the BOM once and it was manufacturable and it had all that definition in it, or did we still have a list?
It had to be sourced. Are we going to make it? What? Are we going to buy it? Where are we going to get it?
Look, even earlier though, we used to make some folks used to make everything in-house. They still had to source the materials. That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have like as fine of a magnifying glass as to where they got it. They were just like, get some aluminum. Get me a billet from somewhere. Right?
I wrote a blog a little while that nobody cared about, where I said that the supply chain is kind of like the story of the Velveteen Rabbit. The supply chain is where it becomes real. Until you have sourced it and bought it,
True.
It's imaginary.
True.
No, it's still puzzle pieces at that point. You've got to assemble the puzzle pieces together. It's not real until it leaves the factory.
It's real. Well, it becomes real.
It can become real.
Through
Let's
the
define
sourcing
real.
supply, because that's the point at which the organization, going back, Pat, to what you said, this is the point at which people spend money.
Right.
That's when you start spending money.
But the customers don't spend money until after manufacturing.
No, Pat, I would say, I just saw my son posted something. There's a Brion Carroll #2 out there somewhere in the world. He just posted something where in the retail community, you can actually sell a digital garment to somebody that wants to put it on their avatar. So it never, ever, never becomes real. Never. It's sold as a, I want to wear this shirt. Boom. You got to buy it. That's freaky.
Yes, I'll absolutely give you that. If you want to eat
not a
food, if you want
product.
to move places, though, you need something physical.
It is a product. It is a product.
Well,
sure.
Yeah, it's software.
It's a software product.
Yeah,
it's a software product. Yeah.
But if you want to eat food, if you want transportation,
conferences-
you need something physical.
Yeah.
When I go to ERP conferences and people look at me like, why are you here? I tell people I deal with the making of the stuff. If it doesn't have to do with the making of the stuff, I don't deal with it.
The making of the
same.
actual physical
Of
asset.
the physical stuff.
Yes. But
Yes,
there's a market now for non-physical assets that
Sure.
you have to
Pat,
buy.
I think you
On the App Store.
Yeah.
That's
so Pat, I think you
software.
hit on something here earlier when your comment about, do we just look at this thing because it's our lens or our view of it? If I'm in maintenance, I see things through the maintenance lens, and you're absolutely right. And I think this really comes down to the breaking down of the silos is really a people problem. We have to have discipline, people, discipline, thought, discipline, action. Of we are now going to not just consider what's in my own little eyes in front of me. Yes, I deal with MES, but if I don't know what's happening in PLM, there's no way I can ever translate what actually is going to happen. If I'm not talking to maintenance, there's no way that I can understand how are we going to maintain this equipment, because if I'm a manufacturing engineer and I'm going to make this just goofball process that nobody can understand or work with, that's not very helpful. So, it does start from I have to think broader than just my own little view of the world.
Yes, it
and
does.
that takes organizational discipline, and that's hard.
Well, there already is individuals that should think above the silo level. That's the CIO, the VP of data governance. If you have those humans in your organization, they should be able, or CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, right? They should be able to go, everybody get together. I'm sick of this crap. I want you to talk. And I want you to talk in front of me so I know you talk. Right?
Yeah.
But that's the way you got to do it. You can't just say, I'm the CIO, and I guess since nothing broke, I'm okay floating out in the atmosphere.
Still, the organization is not big enough.
True. Because you got, for your world, you've got all those independent OEM or the manufacturers.
The organization's not big enough. Do you mean like compared to Boeing that can kind of run this like godlike system versus the average manufacturer that's 200 people?
Boeing was not big enough to control the 737 MAX.
Because it got separated out from the manufacturing and the actual.
Because Boeing sells to airlines, and then they assume airlines are going to do the service, and they also assume that airlines are going to train their pilots properly.
Exactly.
So they're going to always.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, I think there's a bit of background noise somewhere. What's that? I think that there's a bunch of lines we're crossing. There's a problem where we have. I think we talked about this last time. Like the engineers want to own their data, and manufacturing wants to own their data, and the service guys. And so there's an ownership problem because it's my E-BOM, and then I'm going to throw it over the fence, and hopefully someone catches it. Even though my PLM system, which is owned by me, the E-BOM guy, can do M-BOMs, but screw that. We don't. The manufacturing guys don't trust it, and which hits the second problem, which is user experience. And the PLMs are designed for engineers, and it's unusable from anyone outside of engineering, right? The MES, you got your little worker screens. It's a little bit easier to understand. They're sitting on the thing next to you when you're working. That's easy. And then ERP, another catastrophe. It says, sorry, Jörg, but they're not known for a good user experience. And then we go back to service, and once again, you've got MaintainX or service stuff like that, where you've got a relatively easy user interface where I can put stuff in, and yet these are 4 different systems that are completely dissociated from each other. I mean, maybe, Gus, you're going to say, we're going to fix all that with the new thing. But we've been saying that for years. That's what PTC said they were going to do. And they bought ServiceMax and ThingWorks. And what did they do? They sold ThingWorks. So then what do? There's no MES in the middle, right? Dassault said we're going to solve it because we have a Prezo. And so we can do it. And nobody uses it. It doesn't work. You're still using Excel at the end of the day. So that's why David and I had a discussion
we're trying to take the approach of like having a data model underneath that just has like all these components. So it's like, here's a product, and then there's an E-BOM, an M-BOM, the CAD-BOM. There's every single BOM that you can create permutations under, but it's just a data model. So whatever system of engagement you come into, whether that be the CMMS or the PLM or the MES or the CAD interface, it all just pulls granular data from one data model. So that's an approach Autodesk is taking, and I kind of like it.
Isn't that what PTC announced last week with Orbit and Jetstream, though? PTC
Is that what that is?
But
Yeah,
That's what they're trying to do?
asset.
But
Basically, Orbit was the asset lifecycle manager, which is supposed to be multi-discipline, and then Jetstream was sort of the digital thread thing between them. They're all pre-announced, coming later kind of thing. But the talk from them, and I'm supposed to have an interview actually with Steve Dertine and the new head of product management about it, is this sort of digital thread thing. So I don't know.
Well, let me just point one thing out. When Flex PLM came out into the world, it was built on PDM Link. So PDM Link was the shared data model, and you could jet off and do the fan above my head. At the same time, you have a different interface for merch or people that wanted to see it graphically, right? They're both using the exact same bill of material because you could do consumer products and retail on the same system. Now, there was nothing that kept ServiceMax from going into that same world, except they were already engaged in their own system. And so PTC bought them and they brought all their their stuff with them. So it was segregated and separated, but it could have been just go into the same place and put ServiceBomb within that, just like Gus is saying. You could have a unified data model and think of it as, different UIs that service the, unique needs of each one of these humans, engineers, manufacturers, service, retail.
And I would argue you come back to the problem that we're talking about. Each BU having their budget for their system, who the hell's going to pay for that? Engineering already spent their budget on PLM, so screw those manufacturing guys. And
that's where it gets into the
CIO to put a budget.
Costing should be at the CIO
Getting
level,
anybody
not
to
at the
spend
org
money
level.
on supply chain software is almost impossible.
Just need to go to IT and call it a security issue, and then you'll be able to get budget for it.
Well, maybe
David.
Maybe is it more when we do the transformation of having true data governance and having a data organization like a CDO, is that where it's supposed to happen? Is that person's budget supposed to have, hey, I own the digital, I own product memory, to take Oleg's term. Is that where it is? Is that the problem? Is that the budget should be in that data silo? Go ahead.
Right. Exactly.
Organization needs an orchestration layer. Is that what you're saying?
No, the life cycle does.
Well,
the life cycle
realize
needs an organizational layer.
Realize that AI is going to become a shared budget. AI will become a shared budget, a unique line item at the CXX level, and everyone will be, otherwise it's kind of useless, will be a benefactor of its expense. That's what's going to happen. AI is going to become a blended
benefactor or a victim?
Well, depending on how you do it, you could be the victim.
Whoever's in charge of this needs to be compassionate to the needs of the organizational silos.
They have to be compassionate
and putting organizational change management into place.
It's sharing
to make the people and the systems coexist.
There's the people.
Sharing.
So Gus, Gus mentioned something that I want to get back to. And apologies, I always end up coming in 2-3 conversations after the fact, but it's around that data model. And I'm a big believer in this master data model as a concept I promote of it's something that exists outside any product or system or solution or infrastructure, that this is our data model. And then those systems that want to, whatever its functionality is, my PLM, my CMMS, my MES, fill in all your TLAs, FLAs, there needs to be a common way that we expose that information.
Exactly.
And there's a common way that we exchange that information. So we're all looking at the same thing, but it doesn't become that model.
Well,
and
see, David,
that's
where the product memory comes in, right? Because vendors will never disappear. There will always be vendors. Vendors will fight.
Go ahead. You're smiling over there, Oleg.
They'll reinforce.
So David, what you're talking about is like, let's look at it from a CAD perspective. That's why we have STEP. That's why we have IFC for architecture. Like we have one common way of exchanging geometric data between all these proprietary solutions. When do we get that for a product instead of just for a geometric model?
But that's
Yeah.
the point. Each vendor is going to try to contain and own as much of the organization as they can. It's really a vendor influence to org responsibility level. Vendors are going to be in CMMS or SCM or MES or whatever their 3-letter acronym or 4-letter acronym means. Product memory should, must, has to draw from each of those silos and normalize, harmonize that data so AI can rest atop it. That's what has to happen, because you're never going to get rid of the little rabbit race of all of these vendors, reinforcing organizational confinement.
So, Fino, that was question number 1. I see 5 more questions here.
What are you doing on time management, bro?
I propose that we use the closing question. Everybody gets to sound off on it. The closing question we had was, and I think everybody will have something interesting to say, which is, and thank you, Oleg, by the way. It was Oleg that put together this. What belief about M-BOM or manufacturing data management does the industry that's widely accepted today will be proven completely wrong within 5 years? And Oleg, you asked the question, so you get to answer it first, and then we can go around the horn. So what is that commonly accepted as gospel thing about the M-BOM or manufacturing data that is definitely not going to have in 5 years? Is absolutely not the truth anymore. Go ahead, Oleg.
5 years? Holy geez.
5 years. I know it's hard to even think 18 months at this point. Oleg, you wrote the question. You get the first response.
Yes, I will give a response, and I think what we're gonna see is that that people will not disagree how to manage data in different departments and the mistakes that they will have as a result of the misalignment of data, and this happens all the time. So, but people will not agree how to manage data because they have different departments and they have a different opinion about how to do it. And this is we come to the second thing. The people will never, organizations will never agree, and people will never agree. But we need to put something for them to work. And this is where our systems will come. So, and if SAP wins in one organization, they can manage everything, like Mr. Fischer said. In some other organizations, it will not happen. The biggest, from our experience in Open-BOM with customers, the biggest mistake that we see is unit of measures. I mean, a very stupid, simple example. Someone is ordering different unit of measures. Somewhat in many different, like it's a simple and stupid mistake. So try to pull your BOM, put it in any language model and ask to analyze the unit of measure. It will tell you it's using different unit of measures in the same BOM from different metrics, imperial, whatsoever. It's a horrible mistakes that are happening. So again, misalignment of data is the most visible and impactful mistake. Someone is ordering boxes, and in fact, someone planning for boxes and ordering pallets. Someone planning for each unit and then ordering some boxes. I mean, I have a real example of people that I cannot mention their names now that ordered pieces and get 2 pallets of something.
I think the best example is I lost it.
This is a sourcing problem, by the way.
Yes, and this is
Spinal
after
Tap.
all.
Spinal Tap. And
this is the sourcing. That's why what I'm saying, mistakes are coming from the place that people will disagree, and organizations will run multiple systems. This goes to Gus, to your comment. You cannot put everything in the single system. You will end up with 3D experience. No one wants this for the moment, I think, unless you buy SAP. I mean, unless you buy SAP. So again, if you agree an organization on the single piece of software, God bless you. I mean, you can do it. This is fine. But the normal, like in most of organizations that I've seen, eventually people come into different pieces of software. So it will be very interesting to see. It will be very interesting to see in Siemens and PTC now, because I think they are following some different strategies. But my point is, and this is where I think, Brian, you did a great job explaining product memory better than I did. But I mean, you need to have something that connects between those disagreements in order to reason and in order to make decisions. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Gus, your turn.
Okay. Is something accepted today? I'll take more of a stance related to a lot of the companies I work with, where they do discrete manufacturing, and a lot of the product definition starts with mechanical CAD. Like 90% of it comes from there. As far as like the structure, you got to throw in all the supply chain and sourcing and all that, and then we have to make it manufacturable. And so something commonly accepted is there's only two ways this is going to go down. Either we're going to optimize the product for CAD design and updates, and then it's going to be really hard to add all of that definition to make, an M-BOM, if we ever got to an agreement on what the definition is, so that we can get it into an ERP, and someone's going to have to just eat that labor. The flip side is, okay, we're going to make it really easy to get into the ERP, and now we have to optimize our CAD for the manufacturable structure, which is actually really hard to then update when I want to change one little part of that geometric definition, and it just blows up my model. That's the acceptance today, is that it's only one way or the other. I think in 5 years, probably just like a year or 18 months, it is going to be, let's all point to one data model. Let's all point to one place where we can then have this kind of transformation layer so that I can get my M-BOM out of this without having to force some sort of, structure or way of working that isn't very good for the folks designing it. Or the flip, where I'm going to optimize for my upstream design and updating, and then downstream, they're just going to have to suffer with whatever updates and transformations. But rather in the future, it'll get really easy to do these transformation activities to be able to have that thread throughout the entire product and that bill of material definition. And there's actually glimpses of it today. I see in the last month, I've seen 4 different AI coded applications to edit or create a bill of material. It doesn't matter what kind of bill of material, but they all do that. They all add some sort of UX to be able to edit it or update it or view it. But at the end of the day, they're all pointing to a data model underneath. No one cares about a data model. They care about the context in which they interact with that BOM. And so I think that future state is they're all going to point to one place for that kind of system of record, the data model, but everyone can go and have a UX that works really well for them. And then no one's having to just eat all this work to be able to transform or shove it into a system, but rather hopefully things can gracefully flow from one to the next. To David's point, I really liked what he was saying. You have to agree on how you're transmitting that data, how you're going to structure it within your organization so that you can then pass it along from system to system or person to person.
David, why don't you pick it up then, because we're running out of time.
So I
David?
actually have two answers to the question. One is, right now, the whole approach that everybody's taking is that we're going to use these abstracted models to exchange data between systems. And that's the conventional wisdom. But what I'm seeing the market do is just the opposite, and go back to the way we always did it. Instead of making these abstracted connections, we're going to go right back to point, because I've now seen so many projects of, I'm just going to take some new piece of technology and then I'm going to build it in one big behemoth application. So I think in terms of what's going to change is that we're just going to go right back to where we were. What I would like to see change is that we get away from creating these bespoke data models and these bespoke databases and knowledge graphs, and start to create what one comment or one concept that I was going to bring up earlier is this ontological representation of my manufacturing process. Maybe we can make that a little bit larger of, now, anytime I want to know anything about the data that's there, whether it's my as design, as built, service, anything, that I now not only know where to go get that data in a common system, I know how to interrogate it, because I now have a common way. It's what I talk about in a knowledge graph. If I'm going to build out a family tree, you already understand the concept of cousin and brother and sibling and et cetera. The same type of relationships need to exist within manufacturing data. So there's what I think is going to happen is not the direction we think we're going. And what I'd like to have happen is, let's really be deliberate about what we're doing in the future.
Awesome. Brian, quickly.
Yeah, so I'll try to do it in less than 8 minutes. So the M-BOM today, and then what really kind of screws up the answer, no matter who gives it, is that new technology doesn't mean it's adopted. So people will continue to use old systems because they either don't have the funding or don't think it's worth it, or blah, blah, blah. So if you look at the future, there will be, and to David's point, the ontology of all data for all systems, and to Gus's point, different UIs getting at the data based on the profile or role of the human. So future state is kind of like the Jetstream PTC or Siemens, whatever tool they have, where it's a layer on top.
Intelligence center.
Yeah. And you go in, you say, hey, I'm this role. It goes, oh, here, Mr. Johnson, let me show you what you need to see, which is totally different than Mr. Robinson, which is totally different than Miss Longstreet. I was going to do Longwell, but you've already used that, so I can't do it. So coming into this shared ontology is the human with the role, and it validates who they are and changes what they see based on who they are. That's where in 5 years, because 5 years, I mean,
it's a long time.
Son of a gun, that's a long time in technology years, right? So who's on the front line is going to say, screw all that crap. All the data's here. Just shut up and log in. Thank you very much. Do your stuff. We're taking care of all of this stuff. And underneath it is running AI to say, whoops, we got to tell that person something different. So AI is going to become much more mixed. It's going to be shared ontology, and it'll be variances of the view of how you see what you're going to do. But and you'll feel like you're doing it uniquely, but you're not. It's all going into the same data model.
Patrick.
You know, the 5 years thing, to Brian's point, so technology moves fast, but adoption is glacial.
Yeah.
So I don't think anything is going to change until suddenly everything changes. And I don't know what the trigger will be, although it'll be something COVID or bigger.
So
I know it's like 40
AI
degrees
moment,
where you
right?
guys are in Europe. We're 36, 37 where I'm in Detroit. It could be something like that. There'll be some sort of shift. And I think where we're going is a digital thread, which continues throughout the life cycle. And so the E-BOM, M-BOM thing really does just become views into the digital thread.
Awesome.
And I'll stop with that. But I want to add one more thing. Oleg, I want to give a shout out to the post that you had today on E-BOMs and M-BOMs as kind of a lead into this conversation. And this is the highest praise I can give to anything. I just added you to my syllabus. So my students will be covering it next year.
Bro.
I've been looking for, I mean, for years I've been looking for a good conversation about E-BOM and M-BOM.
Nice.
And you really brought some good stuff in, and the stuff that Jörg Fischer brought in. And then I have some stuff I haven't published, but I will publish soon. So anyway, thank you very much for your post today.
Thank you.
Bring us home, Christine.
I honestly think we're all saying the same things, but we're using different words. As long as a bill of materials means a list of parts, which is a lot of the way that people look at it, a bill of materials is not a list of parts. We need more. It is a part of what is the product definition, and people in different organizations have different needs for their view into the product. So hopefully systems are going to see that. In terms of projections, I'm seeing consolidation between PLM and ERP. I am really seeing that PLM is going to have to work with modern ERP systems, because that's where sourcing and supply chain lives, and that we have cut them out of the conversation for far too long.
Well, we'll see what disruptive companies come up between now and then, because I'm not sure. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting couple of years.
So,
for sure.
Michael, do you think we actually came to some form of conclusion?
No.
Part 3, here we come.
Yeah, we might have to. Well, you know what? Honestly, I think we need Jörg on here too to defend his point, because he was in class. Maybe we can find a time or a day where he's on a class. That would be good.
Where he
We
has
have
no
all
class?
PLM people here, no ERP people.
We have David. We have David.
David.
That's right.
David is kind of ERP people will not trust him. And
And unfortunately,
I speak PLM.
Unfortunately, we didn't even get to David's the discussion he and I had online, which is why can't PLMs natively speak ISO 95 so that discussion becomes much more smooth and less translation required, kind of thing. But we'll get to that next time. So I guess perhaps we will have a part 3. You might want to answer that.
I got it.
It's
was my lawyer.
calling.
So thanks everybody. Thank you to the audience. Thanks to our sponsor Eris for this podcast, and we will be back after the summer break with another one. I don't know if it'll be M-BOM Third 3 or we'll come up with something. Don't worry, it'll be something entertaining. It'll probably be some of the same usual suspects. Will probably be other new usual suspects. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody. Cheers.
All right. Thanks, Pino.